Hey, I just had a question about hospice. Like sometimes the team tells you, well, if you up the morphine, then she'll pass quickly and everything. And I'm wondering, ethically for Christian, is that a thing you approve, or do you say no, that's against God's will?
This is another ethical question. It's a tough one. I unfortunately have been there with loved ones where the question was posed. Now, if we don't give them this drug or that drug, then they will suffer longer and eventually will pass. I think it comes down to, first of all, you need to pray because this is something you will have to live with, Bill. You're going to have to live with whatever decision you come to. And it comes down to mercy and what you have peace about. Because if the person is terminal and there's not going to be a miracle, and eventually whether or not there's going to be a miracle or not, it's very clear, and they're going to leave this planet. So you've got to answer the question then: do I keep them alive as long as I possibly can, or do I allow them to go on to heaven? Now, I believe once it is very clear they're terminal, there's nothing you can do, then I think it comes down to mercy. Why let them suffer longer than they need to? I don't think that that's wrong to say, well, all right, then I'm going to pull the plug. I'm going to withhold, like if they're on a breathing machine, but their brain is gone. The only thing that's keeping their body alive is a machine. I think it's merciful to let them go. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Again, it's an ethical question. Every person faced with this who knows the Lord and loves the Lord is going to have to answer this question themselves and come to their own peace. But you finally have to ask yourself, am I keeping them alive for them, or am I keeping them alive for me? And if you're keeping them alive for you, then you have to ask the question, is it selfish then? Because they're suffering. And so I think that at that point, the merciful thing is to let them go. Now, it's another issue altogether if you're practicing euthanasia. If somebody with cancer, let's say they've just discovered they have a brain tumor, and they've been given 9 months, and they decide, well, I want to go and just have a doctor administer a drug into my system that's going to take my life, and I'm not going to go through these 9 months. That to me is different. That to me is another issue, and you got to be real careful you don't open that Pandora's box of, well, I've got cancer and I just don't think that I'm going to be able to survive it, or I don't choose to go through the various stages of the cancer. I'm just going to take my life now. I think we need to be real careful, because once you open that door, you get loose and free with taking people's lives when there might still be a miracle. In other words, if there's still a good amount of time where God could do a miracle, then I think it's very, very questionable whether you should step in and take a life. Only in the final moments, only in the final hours, maybe the final day or two. And I don't want to put a time on it because, I know that there's different situations, but I think there's a difference between, well, I've got cancer. I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to go through the suffering. So just take me now. When there could be a miracle, there really could be a miracle, as opposed to there's a day or two left or a few hours left, and there's nothing, no brain waves. They're already gone, but for this machine. That's different. So I want to be careful. I don't open the door to euthanasia, which I think is as wrong as abortion. But when you're down to the last minutes or hours, I think that's a different story altogether. Mike?
Well, yeah, and we've had people call up here and say, the doctor told me I had terminal cancer. I had 6 months to live. That was 6 years ago. So you want to be real careful when it comes to something like that, because they could go a long, long time. Yes, it's true that sometimes they do call it pretty close, but we all know people that they've called it and missed it completely.